Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Star Trek Frontiers. This is a 1 to 4 player deck building tile placement space exploration game where you take the role of captain of either a Federation ship or a Klingon ship, exploring a new region of space only accessible through a wormhole. You'll be recruiting crew members to your ship, as well as gaining experience through challenges and exploration, trying to become a successful captain or the most successful captain in this new region of space. How do you become a successful captain or the most successful captain and win the game? Well, if you're playing a solo game, you have to complete the scenario. If you're playing a multiplayer game, you have to complete the scenario and then have the most experience points at the end of the game. Now that we know what the winning condition is, let's take a look at the components, setup, and how a round and turn work in Star Trek Frontiers. Now let's take a look at the components for Star Trek Frontiers. We're going to start with the game boards. You have your reputation board and your data core board. You have your map tiles, your data dice. Now let's take a look at the cards. You have your tactics cards, your undiscovered cards, your advanced action cards, which have a plus sign in the top right corner, your reference cards, your damage cards, and then your elite crew, which are your gold back cards, and then your regular crew, which are your silver cards. You have 8 miniatures. You have 4 Borg cubes that have a different color base, and 4 ships. You have your encounter tokens, your transporter tokens, your wound tokens, and then your data crystals. Now let's take a look at the individual player components. You have your ship card, your skill reference card, your skill tokens, your away team token, your action cards that have your ship in the top right corner, your faction tokens, your round order token, and your level tokens, which also double as your command tokens. Now let's take a look at the setup for Star Trek Frontiers. We're going to be setting this up for a 2-player game, and before you start setup, you must first choose a scenario, which if it's your first time playing, they suggest the first reconnaissance, and then you're going to choose your order or ship. So you would choose who goes first and pick a ship to use in the game. So in this game, we're going to be using the Enterprise as the first player, and then the Bird of Prey as the second player. Now we're ready to start the setup, which takes 17 general steps and 9 player steps. Step number 1 is to set up your boards. You're going to place those boards in the center of your play area, and then you're going to place a faction token that has your ship's symbols at 0 for both the experience and the reputation. Step number 2 is to sort, shuffle, and stack your encounter tokens. Step number 3 is to shuffle and stack your advanced action deck, and then reveal the top 3 cards. Step number 4 is to shuffle and stack your undiscovered deck, and then reveal the top 3 cards. Step number 5 is to stack your damage cards. Step number 6 is to choose your space tiles and create a space tile stack based on the scenario. So for our scenario, because we're playing a 2-player game, we will have 8 of the regular blue-backed Frontier tiles. We will have 1 Borg tile and 2 non-Borg tiles. So you're going to shuffle the non-Borg and Borg red-backed tiles together, and then stack them underneath the 8 blue Frontier tiles. Step number 7 is to place your reference cards close to the playing area. Step number 8 is to set your Borg cubes to the side. Step number 9 is to create room near your playing area for the common skill area. Step number 10 is to shuffle and stack your crew decks. Step number 11 is to place your round order. Step number 12 is to roll the data dice. You are going to roll the number of players plus 2, so in our 2-player game, we're going to roll 4 data dice. And you have to have at least half of those dice be the basic colors, which are red, blue, or yellow. Step 13 is to reveal regular crew members, which you're going to reveal the number of cards equal to the number of players plus 2. Step number 14 is to create your starting map by placing your wormhole and then the top 2 tiles and then checking your references if you have to do any other action. When you're placing space tiles, you want to make sure that you are matching up the circles and the stars on the corners of those tiles, as well as orienting them based on the number. Once you reveal the tiles, you do want to check your references to see if any other actions happen. Like you see, we placed 2 Romulan tiles for encounters on these particular tiles. Step number 15 is create a data dice and data tokens bank. Step number 16 is to stack wound and transporter tokens. And then finally, step number 17 is to set up your tactic cards. Now let's look at the player setup. Step 1 is to place your ship card. Step number 2 is to leave 3 rows space in the middle of your area. Step number 3 is to create a faction token bank to the right of your play area. Step 4 is to shuffle and stack your ship deck. Step number 5 is to shuffle and stack your skill tokens. Step number 6 is to pile in ascending order your command level tokens with the first and second level on top. Then placing the blank command level token face down next to your command level token stack. Step 7 is to collect your ship figure and your skill reference card. Step number 8 is to place your away team token. And finally, step number 9, you're going to draw the number of action cards equal to your player hand, which is on your command level token. At the beginning of the game, you're going to draw 5 cards. Now let's go through how round and turn work in Star Trek Frontiers. Each round has 4 phases. The first phase is the prepare for the round phase. This is where you re-roll your data die. You will refresh your crew cards, discarding all the ones that are face up. If you have not discovered a core tile or a red tile, then all of your crew cards would be regular. If you have discovered a red core tile, then you would alternate between regular and elite crew members. If you have discovered a Class M planet, then you would have advanced action cards a part of your crew offer, and during this time you would reveal more advanced actions to replace those that you discard during this phase. Next, you would refresh your advanced action cards. You would discard the bottom card, slide the top 2 down, and then reveal an advanced action card. Then you would repeat this process for your undiscovered cards. You would then collect your tactic cards, and then each player would refresh their skills, they would ready any crew members, and shuffle their ship cards and draw up to their hand limit. The second phase is the choose tactic card phase. The lowest person on the experience track chooses first. Then you're going to check and see if that tactic card has any actions that you have to carry out, and then you will rearrange the turn order based on the number that you chose of the tactic card. So the lower the tactic card number, the earlier you would go in turn order. Phase 3 is the player turns phase. In turn order, players will take turns until one of the players announces the end of the round, which would give everyone one final turn. There are 2 types of turns that you can take. You could take a regular turn or emergency repairs. A regular turn consists of an optional move and then an optional action. During this turn, you can claim one of the data die from the data core board. If you use it during your turn, you'll re-roll it and then place it back on the data core board for the next player. During your move and action, you would play cards from your hand to move or carry out actions. You may use the data die to perform the bottom of the card. Any card can be used as a 1 for move, shield, attack, or diplomacy. When you are moving, check the data board for your move costs. When you move to a new undiscovered space tile, you will gain 1 experience point. Moving your ship to 2 adjacent enemy spaces in a row would provoke an attack from that enemy. When you're moving for the first time, you come out at the wormhole. The actions that can take place during your turn are an interaction with a particular location. This is where you can recruit, repair, get healing, or you can buy cards. The second type of action you can carry out on your turn is combat with enemies. When you are adjacent to an enemy token and you want to perform combat, it takes 4 steps. Step 1 is the long-range attack phase. This is where you perform any long-range attacks. You must play long-range attacks of equal to or higher than the enemy's defense value. The shields phase is where the enemy attacks you, and you would take their attack number, compare it to your shield number. Then the third step would assign damage. You would assign all unblocked damage to your ship. For each damage card that you take to your hand, you could reduce the damage by your captain's defense value. And then you would get to perform an attack phase. This is where you must compare your attack value, and it must be higher than or equal to the enemy's defense value. If you defeat the enemy, you will gain experience points for each defeated enemy token, and then discard the token. So for the enemy you see here, they have a defense of 3, an attack of 4, and then if you defeat the enemy, you get experience of 2. Another form of combat is to send down an away crew. This is where you will assign a captain and or crew members to an away team. Then you would draw a planet token matching the planet that you are adjacent to. You would play diplomacy points equal to the diplomacy value of the planet token to immediately overcome the planet. If you can't do that, you go into a long-range attack phase, an assigned damage phase, and then an attack phase, just like the combat. And the last type of action is player versus player combat. If it's your first time playing the game, or if you're doing the first reconnaissance scenario, you cannot use player versus player combat. But in player versus player combat, there are 3 steps. Step 1 is the defender declares their intention. If they attend the attack fully, they can act as if it were also their turn, including the end of turn processing. They are protected until the next turn, but they lose their next turn. Then we go into long-range attack phase, and then the close-range attacks phase. The second type of turn is to perform emergency repairs. You may discard 1 non-damage card with any number of damage cards. And then if you only have damage cards, this is called a slow recovery, and you're only allowed to discard 1 damage card. And then at the end of your turn, you would return and re-roll any data dice that you used. You would discard played cards, use the benefit of your location, claim the combat rewards, and levels up, if any. You can discard any number of non-damage cards, and then you would draw cards back up to your hand limit. Once we've reached the end of the round, the 4th phase of a round is to check the scenario description to see if the game is over and the scenario is completed. Then you would go into the next round, and then rounds would continue on until the scenario has been completed or if the round limit has been reached. Then you would follow the outcome in the scenario book. Then you would check the scenario to see the outcome of the game. If you completed the scenario and you're playing a solo game, then you would be a successful captain. And then if you are playing a multiplayer game and you completed the scenario, the person that has the most experience points would be the most successful captain in this new region of space and win Star Trek Frontiers.